Assalamualaikum guys. Another week, another video. As always, this time I have another interesting topic to discuss. So this time I was watching a YouTube video by Taimur Laal, and he was saying Zakat does not end poverty. And I decided to have a look into that topic, and then I thought maybe I should share my thoughts on that topic. So without wasting any time, let's jump right into it. There you go. Nice. Taimur Laal made following criticisms. He's basically a socialist, so he was looking at Zakat from the perspective of capitalism. And he was saying that the scholars of Islam guarantees that Zakat will end poverty, but it never did. And he has a point. Uh, whether Zakat ends poverty or not, we'll discuss that. But let's discuss the criticisms that he made. He said that donation is done a lot in Pakistan and in other parts of the world, especially in Muslim world, but in other parts of the world as well. But it never solved poverty. And he was saying salary in capitalism is determined, just like everything, demand and supply. He also said that if cost of production is high, then the capitalists will just stop the production and people will lose their job. That will increase poverty again. So if you increase the salary, it increases the cost of production, which backfires for the people, and they might just end up losing their job. If there's a very high profit margin, then people invest, the supply increases. But if the profit margin is low, then people will not invest, and there will be decrease in supply as well. He also said that uh, we need perfect competition. So in perfect competition, we have an ideal environment where we have competition and anyone can enter the competition or start their business. And there's no monopoly. So in this situation, a normal person is on the winning side. Demand and supply are correlated. If production is high, then price of labor is also higher, which results in better quality of life. So in a sense, demand and supply also determines the quality of life. If you're giving tax or zakat for free education, then capitalists will lower the salary. This is what Taimur Laal was saying. Like capitalists, they adjust everything according to the environment. So suppose if there's a facility that's being provided by the government, capitalists will not cover them, and market will readjust itself. Why do we have higher salary in the Western countries? So Taimur Laal was saying it's because of imperialism and fear of communism. So there was a history where people feared that people will revolt and communism might take over. So in the West, they increase the salary. He discussed few other things as well, like Keynesian economics. It's about managing internal debt and aggregate demand pushing. So they manage internal debt by giving cash to population to increase economic activity. They also often start infrastructure projects. Then they adjust the inflation. He was saying access to land is very important in third world countries for poverty alleviation. He was giving example of China, as China gave access to land, but India didn't. According to him, this is the reason why India is still in poverty. In capitalism, zakat does not solve poverty, as capitalist keeps readjusting the market. This is what Taimur Laal said in his video. He also talked about increasing production to come out of poverty, which is valid. Now let's move to the next slide. Okay, so the fun begins now. We'll move to the next slide. What are the causes of poverty? Uh, we're done with Taimur Laal's criticism. What are the causes of poverty? Because of automation, wealth is now accumulated by less than 5% of the people. You see, most of the businesses are now automated and they require less labor. And because of that, wealth is getting accumulated by only a handful of people. We also have trickle down economy in effect. So, in trickle down economy, wealth flows slowly from the top to the bottom. But unfortunately, it's not fast enough to lower poverty. High salary due high GDP. They keep increasing the living standard. This is another reason why people are in poverty, or they think they're in poverty. Let's see. Let's find out what poverty is. Uh, I think it's important that we know what the definition of poverty is. What should be defined as poverty? What is the level of poverty? Poverty is, in the simplest term, can be defined as a lack of basic necessities like food, clothing, and shelter. In other words, it is the absence of means, money, to fulfill those needs, or means to maintain minimum living standard. In modern society, we keep increasing the living standard, but we forget that poverty always remains the same, and that is to have food, clothing, and shelter. Nowadays we are innovating so quickly, and the society is not being able to catch up, you know, and the gap between living standards of the upper class and the lower class is increasing very quickly, and it will keep on increasing. And because we are more connected nowadays, so this makes people feel inferior as well when they look up to the upper class or the elites. Then they start to feel inferior, even though they're already living a very decent life or maybe a very very good life, but they'll still feel insecure and inferior. Is it necessary that we own property to come out of poverty? So, according to this section 24 of the Human Rights Act 2019, it says that all persons have the right to own property alone or in association with others. The link is there, you can follow it. Since the article says in association, it means not everyone can have the property all by himself. Means a person may have or may not have a land, but they will still not be below the lines of poverty. And land is a commodity in capitalism. It is not seen as a basic one. Shelter is. There is a difference between shelter and having a land or property. You can have shelter while you're renting. And it's the job of government to make it possible for everyone to afford shelter. Let's move to the next slide. Okay, so Taimur Laal was saying if there's a facility that's being provided by the government, then uh, capitalists don't cover it. So that is a very wrong statement when it comes to Zakat. Because any facility that's being provided by the government might not get covered by the capitalist. But the thing is, Zakat is not by the government. Zakat is person to person. This point does hold true in an Islamic society because zakat is also undeclared and unannounced. You don't go and tell everyone you have given someone zakat or this is what the zakat is. A person who is receiving zakat or who is giving zakat remains unknown. So, if a person is unknown, capitalists won't be able to readjust the market. Capitalists can only adjust the salary if zakat is announced or the assistance is provided by the government. Also, in Islam, it is preferred to give zakat in person. So Taimur Laal also said that people will stay poor even if some money is given uh, to people who are in poverty. But this is an old assumption. People used to say that if you give money to homeless people, they will just waste them on drugs, which is not true. It was debunked by a research done by some people in Canada. The article is there. You can do the research yourself. Basically, what they did was they gave some money to some people, and those people were able to start their normal life. They were not spending on drugs or anything. Instead, they were rather more careful with money this time. Why do some people don't donate? They think that saving will increase their wealth, but what's happening is basically the money is going out of circulation, and because of that, government has to print more money to keep money in circulation. And that causes inflation. Another reason is that people often take loans nowadays, even unfortunately, even in Muslim community, people take loan and riba, and now they themselves are in debt. They'll obviously keep themselves first and try to pay off their debt. And when they're paying off the debt, they don't give zakat because they'll always have some debt on themselves. And some people are just lazy, and often they have weaker faith. While researching about zakat, I discovered something really interesting. Did you notice what happened in this graph? Okay, so this is very interesting. Zakat flattens the curve. In today's society, it's 4 to 5% people who owns like 90% of the wealth. It's something like that. And if they start giving 2.5% of their wealth to people who deserve it, we will have flattened the curve. It does not end poverty, but it makes it manageable. Yeah. So zakat does not eradicate poverty, but it reduces the poverty. If if we build a strategy around zakat, then we can we can take people out of poverty. Because in zakat, when we are giving zakat, uh, we basically arrange some basic needs and livelihood for the person who is deserving. And this gives them time not to worry about basic needs. In this time span, that person can actually arrange something for themselves, or maybe they can ask someone to help them arrange livelihood. So some interesting points here. Zakat actually makes poverty manageable. It does not end it. Yeah, he's right. Zakat does not end poverty. But Taimur Laal did not uh, say anything about zakat. He was basically trying to stress on the point that in capitalism you cannot end poverty, which is fine, which is right. But he was trying to give socialism as an alternate. But we don't want that. And we must understand that poverty is systemic. Whatever system we'll always have poverty because something terrible happens, and it is all often uncertain, and people lose everything. And because of that, they often fell in poverty. And the most interesting point here is zakat flattens the curve of wealth distribution. Over time, all the wealth flows to the rich people eventually. That's how the system is designed. But if they're made to give zakat, which is person to person, then we will have flattened the curve. So that's all for today. And so the video ends here. And inshallah, I'll see you next time. Assalamu alaikum, guys.